How many years have you been working on this?
Well, I've been working on it for 25 years, ever since.
25.
Yeah. So it's maybe 24 and a half to be specific. It was in 2000, 19, what is it? Oh my goodness, 1996 that I got involved with this because of the cell tower at my school. But
Mhm.
I come from a family of electrical engineers on both sides of my family, and that prepared me for this. It was coming together for me of my knowledge about electricity from my father and from my mother's family. Her grandfather worked with Thomas Edison as a telegraph operator in New York when
Wow.
he when in in the late 1880s. And so, and his son, my uncle, and his two brothers, they worked for General Electric and Western Electric. My dad ran LA Water and Power and is recognized as a fellow in the um, Academy of Engineering because of his contributions to water and power resource development in the United States. He designed what is now known as the smart electric grid in the United States in the 1970s. And the design of that was merely to uh, assure electrical reliability service by sharing power, bulk power sharing. That was the initial design that he was involved with, founded the National Electrical Reliability Council, NERC, which is based in New Jersey. But what he designed initially was not on computer. It's
Mhm.
phenomenally different now than it was then, and it's a smart grid. But I learned at the dining room table what my dad did at work because he talked about it every night at dinner. So that was in my mind, and he was aware of EMF safety issues, which opened my mind when I started reacting to things in the early 90s. So yeah, it all came together in 1996 for me. Everybody's got a story.
They do. And we all stand on giants, I think. And there's been I only got involved less than a decade ago. And I was shocked to learn how much work had gone before, how much there already was that I was not aware of, that I had completely been in the dark about when I got my phone and my Wi-Fi and all this, and had no idea that there was so much research and scientists and policy efforts that had been moving forward. I wasn't aware that in 212 there was the cell phone right to know, a federal law in the United States that had been proposed, which would have provided what you're talking about in the EMF scientist appeal, that independent scientific evaluation of the science and the development of limits that can be protective, which we don't have.
No, that's right. We're not safe. These standards that have continued really unchanged since 1965 are
Mhm.
just based on avoiding heat. And since this appeal was published, we have looked to see whether there's any reaction. The reactions we've gotten, for example, from the International Commission on Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection, and from the EMF project, which is in the Office of Radiation at the World Health Organization, the leaders of those groups used to say, well, that's just their opinion. Well,
Mhm.
there's 254 scientists here standing together expressing their opinion based on their science. At what point does that opinion become factually important or relevant?
Right.
And it's not. It's so far we're being ignored, and that's continues to happen. I mean, the International Agency on Research on Cancer intends to take up the issue of radio frequency radiation and review the body of evidence now that will include these long-term studies. But as of today, the FCC and the ICNIRP, which is that nonprofit group based in Germany, funded largely by the telecom industry and the German government, FCC and this group ICNIRP, they ignore these long-term studies. They ignore science they don't like. So that's a problem because these people are not independent. They're being co-opted by the affected industries that they serve. And the overall goal, I think, has always been and still is national security and economic productivity. when it comes down to individuals and the harm that may be created to people and the birds and the bees, that seems to be secondary, and that's wrong.
Right. I think I was shocked to find out that ICNIRP, the International Commission for Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection, has at most 14 people. And when you take a look at where they've worked in the past, or who's funding their labs or providing the equipment that they're using, there is, for several of them, a long history of industry ties. But they say that they are independent, that they are not connected to industry, and yet some of them even have on their conflict of interest form statements that they have Telstra volunteers in. Telstra is the Australian telecommunications company, and their staff, their engineers, are in the same department helping with the research that they're doing, and yet that person says that they are independent.
Yes, and just one more point to back you up on that, Theodora. The head of the Office of Radiation at the World Health Organization, who oversights EMF, is an electrical engineer, not a medical doctor. She's never practiced medicine. I don't understand why we have an electrical engineer in the World Health Organization to look after public health on this matter.
Yes, that's very important. And welcome, Dr. Seymour. We were just talking about the industry influence into the standard setting, de facto standard setting committees, and how most people are not aware that the World Health Organization, and I like to say this every time we talk about it, has two different entities under its umbrella. One is the EMF project, the World Health Organization EMF project. They have those fact sheets you see, and they have the electrical engineer leading. And that was started by Repiccioli, who's now an industry consultant. And then you have the International Agency for the Research on Cancer, which has independently vetted scientists who come together to research a specific agent every so often. Really depends. They haven't looked at radiofrequency radiation since 2011, but they have been advised to now look at this issue within, I think, 5 years. So it's happening. But again, they're two different entities.